One day, if you're really bored, walk into your local yacht club, order a drink and ask, what's the best anchor to use for a yacht? Then just sit back and enjoy the moment. Welcome to the highly contested topic of anchors and anchoring. Which is best, how big is big enough, and how much scope to use. By the end of the day, you will have 100 passionate opinions, none of them right and none of them wrong. But we don't only need the right anchor for our specific boat. We need good quality, robust hardware to make sure our other home stays safe. Once you have an anchor, you will also need some good quality, durable chain. Then some 3-strand nylon to add to your ground tackle, which we will discuss a little bit later. Then for daytime anchoring, we need to let other boaters know that we are at anchor, so an anchor ball must be displayed. Then to connect everything, we need good quality and correctly sized shackles and swivels. As nobody can see an anchor ball at night, we need an anchor light at the top of our mast and of course a reminder to put it on and off. And finally, an anchor alarm to let us know if we are dragging, and of course a reminder to put it on and off. So let's go back and start at the beginning, the anchor itself. We need an anchor that sets well and also one that resets easily when we experience wind and tidal changes. Where you spend most of your time cruising might determine which anchor works best for you. Different anchors will set differently depending on the seabed. Are we anchoring in sand or even mud? Maybe there's a lot of grass or shell, which can make things tricky. And then what about rocks or even coral, which of course should be avoided. Now it's pointless spending loads of money on a good anchor if we don't use correctly sized good quality shackles. Here we have a D shackle, which is obviously not the right size. It's too big and the load will concentrate unevenly on a single point. The second D shackle is better suited as it will have a snug fit, but any lateral load will still create uneven pressure. Better to use bow shackles. Speaking of shackles, when we connect two shackles, we want to connect them crown to crown and not pin to pin. When we connect shackles to anchors, we connect the pin to any square cut holes as shown here. So we have quite good movement on this setup, but what we don't have is twist. To avoid twisting of chain and to ensure our anchor rotates to the correct angle for the bow roller, we would want to add an anchor swivel. For the ultimate setup, add 3 links of chain and we have covered all possible directions of load. Shackles close with thread, and to avoid pins working loose, all shackles should be moused, that is, locked with stainless steel wire to prevent any rotation of the pin. There is a link in the description below to a great video on mousing. So the anchor is now securely attached and has unrestricted movement in all directions. The chain runs over the bow roller where a pin or other attachment prevents it from jumping off the roller. It runs through the windlass gypsy and into the chain locker. We can now use the windlass to control chain going in and out of the locker. To prevent us from losing everything overboard, the chain must be connected to the boat somewhere, but we're not going to do that just yet, and we'll come back to this later. Anchors work by setting themselves into the seabed. In other words, they hold with a horizontal load. If we have chain pulling the anchor up vertically, we have a great potential for dragging, as the boat pulls the anchor up and the anchor cannot bite. This brings us to the catenary effect, the way a line, cable or chain hangs between 2 points. The more chain we let out, the more horizontal pull on the anchor, creating better holding. So how much chain? In shallow waters with calm conditions and good holding, using all chain, we can set a ratio of 3 to 1. That is 3 meters of chain for every 1 meter of water depth. The more accepted scope ratio, however, and a safer bet, is a setting at a ratio of 5 to 1 if we are using all chain. If we are using a combination of chain and rope, then we want to be looking at a ratio of 7 to 1. Water depth we get from our transducer connected to our chart plotter, but this shows us depth from the seabed to the waterline. We must add the distance from the waterline to the bow roller before we calculate how much chain we are going to be using. So why not just use all the chain we got? Because in some anchorages we might have to ensure that we don't create a large swinging area which will bring us into close contact with fellow boaters and cause potential collisions. Our channel relies on the generosity of our viewers, so please consider Patreon or once-off super thanks to show your support for the effort that goes into making them. You can also check out our merch options below, including our range of patriotic sailing apparel. Another great way to show your love is to like, comment, share, and subscribe. When we anchor during the day, remember to put up your anchor ball, showing that you are on anchor. At night, when the ball is not visible, remember to switch on your anchor light. In Asia, light up your boat like a Christmas tree with everything you got. Right, so now we know how much chain we want to use according to depth. How do we know how much chain we are letting out or bringing back in? If we don't have a fancy chain counter, we will need to mark our chain. Haul it out onto the dock and lay it out in increments according to your needs, in our case every 10 meters. Now we have to choose the correct markings for our chain. Some sailors like to thread colored strips through their chain, making sure it does not foul the windlass. Another option is to paint sections of your chain, remembering to check the paint often. Then we get actual chain markers, which work pretty effectively. We have lost only one on my ear in 2 years, but they do get tricky to see when bringing up chain covered in mud. One controversial method is using cable ties, but these can injure your hands, foul your windlass, and if they break, they are just adding more plastic to the ocean. So try avoid this if you can. Whatever option you go for, make yourself a color-coded reference and paste it on your locker lid. There is no right or wrong way to color code, but there are suggestions for color coding which can be found online. Now back to connecting everything to your boat. While there are advantages to having all chain, you also might want to add some anchor rope to your setup. With rope, we add a stretch effect that we don't get with all chain, so if you pull back hard on your anchor, we don't damage shackles, bow rollers, or the windlass. Rope is also easy to cut through as opposed to trying to remove mouse wire and rusty shackles in an emergency if we need to dump everything. Of course, we also always use a snubber, but we are coming back to that. So we want to find out which anchor to use for the boat. If we use Rockner as an example, we can go onto their website and check their size guide. Our 38-footer falls in this row, and our displacement is just under 18. So we are looking at a Rockner 25 kg with 10 mm chain. What if we want to oversize our anchor? The 25 kg sells at $960 and the next size up sells at $356 more, also using 10 mm chain. So it depends on your budget. Not only that, but the 33 kg might not fit your bow roller. Fortunately, Rockner also let you download templates to print, cut out and fit before buying. This way we can also check if it will fit in the anchor locker if we have to store it for long periods of time. We are not sponsored by Rockner in any way. It's just what came with our boat when we purchased her and have had no reason to change. Let's have a look at some scenarios where budget and weight might affect your choices for your anchor and ground tackle. Both scenarios involve the 25 kg Rockner, which of course weighs 25 kg and will cost around $960. In scenario A, we will be adding 100 meters of 10 mm chain and in scenario B we'll be using 70 meters of 10 mil chain and then splice on 30 meters of 3-strand nylon. The weight difference between the two scenarios is 62 kgs, which is nearly 137 pounds. So this is added weight to the bow of our boat that we need to take into consideration. Using all chain is also going to cost well over $300 more, so budget is going to be a factor. To be able to secure and release effectively, we will still be adding some 3-strand to scenario A, so there will be some added cost to both setups for splicing and splicing accessories. A professionally spliced 30-meter length of 3-strand costs over $300, so your choice might come down to how much weight we want to add to the locker and how often we will use all 100 meters of chain. There is no right solution, it depends on our requirements, usage and budget. Take a look at this video we released whilst anchoring in Sumatra, which shows our emergency anchor strategy. Okay, so now what used to be a permanent fixture, this attaches into the chain locker with the carabiner, which is easily released, even at night. So we don't have to struggle with trying to undo clamps or trying to figure out a way to get it off. It's just going to hook from the anchor locker. This is the end of our chain, by the way. Chain is attached to 25 meters of this. So when this is not attached to the boat's not attached to the anchor, which is fine. Onto this, we're going to attach fender. And we'll keep it aboard here. So our chain is attached to this rope, which is what I showed you last week, and then this rope gets attached with this clamp to the inside of the chain locker so that we attach the anchor. Now attached to this we also have a fender. Our exit strategy is, if things go south and things get really bad, instead of trying to pull up 25 meters of this, and it's probably going to be at night, followed by 50 meters of 10 millimeter chain, it's going to take a while, take too long, and we go into exit strategy mode, and all we do is unclip this from the chain locker and dump it all over the side, and the fender marks the end of our line. Then we get the hell out of here until things calm down, and when we return, our anchor should be waiting for us again. Job done. When we enter an anchorage, we want to do a little drive-by to choose our spot and to also observe the actions of the other boats on anchor. Most times, but not always, these boats will generally all be facing in a certain direction, held there by the current or the wind. This will give us an indication of how we will lie once we have dropped our anchor. We also drop anchor facing into current or wind and then back up when feeding out our chain. At this stage we have already checked our charts to check the approximate depth, so we know how much scope to put out and check to see what weather conditions are expected. Because we know depth and current, we can roughly work out where everyone's anchors are lying so we don't drop on someone else. The drive-by allows us to pick our spot, say hi, and hopefully get invited to sundowners. Our neighbors by now will be getting a drink and sitting back to check our skills. At this stage, our anchor is prepped and ready and the chain secured on the windlass gypsy. Crew will know approximately how much scope will be used and at what depth the anchor will touch the seabed. Good communication between skipper and crew is vital, so work out your signals, or better yet, use a two-way radio. The skipper ensures the boat is not making any speed over ground before giving the order to drop. The crew can now drop the anchor, keeping an eye out for the chain markers which show how much chain has been put out. Important: if your chain slips from the windlass and you encounter a runaway chain, do not try to grab it by hand. This is extremely dangerous. Let it run. The next important step is for the crew to inform the skipper when the anchor touches the seabed. This will be done according to how much chain is out in relation to the water depth. This is done so that the skipper can set the anchor alarm. As we continue to let out more chain, the skipper backs up so the chain lies along the seabed and not dumped into a pile, which could foul the chain. Crew should not release chain all at once, but ease the chain out, all the while informing the skipper of how much chain has been used. We don't have to back up at speed, just enough to lie the chain out and cause the catenary effect, which will dig the anchor in. So why set the anchor alarm when the anchor touches the seabed? We want the center of our anchor alarm radius to be at the anchor. We see many skippers activate the alarms once they have completed their anchoring, and that puts the center of the alarm radius at the boat position. By doing this, they increase the chances they will move out of the safe area and the alarm will sound, especially during a tidal change or wind shift. We want the center of our safe area to be at the anchor, so we are able to move safely and swing within this area. That way we won't activate the alarm and cause unwanted concern about dragging. Now we are ready to check that our anchor is set, but before we do this we have to secure a snubber. The snubber is a length of line attached to the chain and secured to a docking cleat at the bow. This length of line acts as a shock absorber and adds some spring to our setup. This makes for a more comfortable night, but more importantly, ensures that the load is on a cleat and not on the windlass. It also ensures that if the chain is pulled tight, we don't break or damage any of our other hardware, such as shackles and swivels. We attach the snubber using a dedicated snubber hook or by using a knot such as a camel hitch. The harsher the conditions expected, the longer the snubber line. Don't forget to check snubber lines for chafing. Now to make sure the anchor is set, the skipper backs up on the anchor. The required RPM used depends on your boat, but most try to get up to about 1,500 RPM. Once the chain pulls taut, keep an eye on a reference point on land or surrounds to make sure the anchor is holding. Once satisfied, we can engage neutral again and we will spring back on our chain. This is us on the west coast of Simelu, with a proposed anchorage as shown by Navionics. Unfortunately, we don't have too much information to work with, as Indonesia is not well charted and also not accurate following the devastating tsunami of 2004. So when we navigate in these waters, we also make use of satellite images provided by apps such as offline maps. By using offline maps, we give ourselves valuable information not provided by regular charts and is essential in these waters. These images provide us with detailed information about the seabed and offer the best solution for safe anchoring. Our satellite image shows that our original option is no good, with the seabed consisting of mostly rock. Around the island, in a little bay, we see a nice sandy bottom in a protected area. We also make sure our chart plotter is tracking as we move so that we can safely navigate out at night should we encounter any issues. Offline maps, once downloaded, work with GPS, so no cell service is required. The satellite image gives us a much better anchorage option with better holding and a peaceful night's sleep.